What's good, YouTube? What's good? Stormy B-Man, and I am back with another Kung Fu film focused. This time we are spotlighting and profiling the film from 1971, The Duel, also known as Duel of the Iron Fist. This was a film that was released by the Shaw Brothers Film Company, the largest film company in the Far East. Shaw Brothers Film Studio was headed up by Sir Run Run Shaw, the most prolific entertainment mogul from the Far East. Run Run Shaw was born in 1907 and he died in January of 2014. He lived a very long life and will be forever remembered for his film studio, the Shaw Brothers Studio. They produced in their heyday over 1,000 films for the general public. A number of those films included operas, song and dance, spy thrillers, scary films, and horror films, along with what they're most noted for, their swordplay and martial arts action films. This film that we're covering today, The Duel, was brought out in 1971 after the Shaw Studio had contractual battles with their former studio star, Jimmy Wong Yu, who wanted to spend a number of opportunities trying to produce his own films and direct his own films after he had success with the one-arm swordsman. And so when he broke his contract with the Shaw Studio, he was told and advised that he could break the studio contract but couldn't film films in Hong Kong anymore. So he went to Taiwan. And so Run Run Shaw sought to go a different direction after having these studio problems with Jimmy Wong Yu, and he elected to go into his stable of actors, and he brought out a couple of young men that were featured in this film, The Duel. The director of most of his action productions was the legendary Chang Chi. Chang Chi was noted for his blood and guts warrior films from the late 60s, sword action films, and later as hand-to-hand, or as they call it, fist-style fighting films became popular. Chang was known for his affinity for blood in films. He sought to make sure that film sets, actors, and the floors of the studio would be splattered with tons of blood from swordplay, penetrating weapons, and all sorts of action that was devised for his films. And the audiences at the time ate it up. He became so popular that he could almost do no wrong with, regardless of what kind of film he would put out for the studios. Another thing noted by Chang Chi was, having been born in Shanghai, China in 1923, he passed away in June of 2002. Chang-Chi was known as not only a filmmaker, he was a screenwriter, producer, and a lyricist. He was also noted for his wonderful handwriting with Chinese characters. You know, in Chinese, when they write and they use the brush to stroke the characters, Chang-Chi was an expert at that. Matter of fact, in any of the Shaw Brothers films where there was some handwriting being done, it was usually his hand that the camera was capturing writing down because his scripts were so perfect. He had perfect writing skill. As you know, you can speak of someone having perfect diction when they speak. He was perfect with the brushstroke and was really revered for that. He had made so many films under the Shaw Brothers banner and contributed a great deal to scripts and producing ideas for their films. So the film, The Duel, takes from another story of brotherhood, family values, and betrayal. So as we get ready to go into covering The Duel, I just wanted to make sure that the listening audience out here, in respect to anyone that's out there listening at this moment and who have decided to spend this time with Stormy B Man to cover this, another Kung Fu Film Focus, I wanted to establish the respect for these two men and their collaborations and what they were able to bring to the movie screen for our enjoyment. Because without these two men, the film world from Asia would have been a great deal differently. They had their contributions cannot be spoken enough. I will speak about them again in the future, even possibly considering doing a show on each man as an individual. But for now, we will get into the film, you know, that was known as The Duel, or Duel of the Iron Fist. This film was produced in 1971, and Tai Lung and David Chang were cast as co-leads in this film. They were young men who had joined the Shaw Studios in the mid-60s and became contracted actors who worked their way up. Chang as a stuntman and Tai Lung as a athlete slash hopeful actor. When I call Tai Lung an athlete, he had studied Wing Chun martial arts early in his life, and when he signed up for the Shaw Studios, he wanted to become an actor. Okay, and David Chang Tawa, he was of a young man who came from a family in the performing arts. So he and later his younger brother, they sought careers in the Shaw Studios. They were very successful after becoming bit players to stunt men, and then later on starring roles themselves. And that was also helped by Jimmy Wang Yu vacating the studio premises. So they moved up, and it was both Run Run's idea and Chang-Chi's idea that they wouldn't focus on one studio star. They would have various stars and put them in roles where they were all kind of on the same level as far as the respect that they garnered and everything like that. But it was also to help keep from producing more problems of the same that they had with Jimmy Wang Yu. And it proved to be effective, because one obscure fact here is that Tai Lung and David Chang Tawei did not like each other. They were not buddies. They were not companions. But you would never know it from the roles that they played, which often pit them as brothers united. And on occasion, they were bitter enemies on screen. But the two men and their acting ability really took hold because they were not fond of one another, but you could never tell it when you watched their films. And The Duel is another film where we see Ty playing an adopted son in a family of, we could just call them, for the better sake of things, we could call them like I'm trying to make sure I use this term correctly. Let's just say their family was like a gangster family, okay? And he was an adopted son. So he was very naughty, the term that they would use, which means he was a street urchin. He was always getting in trouble and things like that. And his family had a reputation. They were a family that was connected, so to speak, and they had a rival, a crosstown rival. And the crosstown rival looked to get a one-up on them by murdering their leader. And so they hired a gentleman to do the dirty work for them. He acted as a friend. He came in as someone who could be partial to the family with respect and for his reputation because he was a hired assassin. And this is how he was able to get in close and get the job done by murdering the connected family's leader. Now, Tai Long's character, when he found out that the patriarch of the family, his dad, was murdered, of course he wanted to extract revenge on him, but it was interesting because the next one in line was not his elder brother, but it was another figurehead in the family. And so that figurehead devised a plan to say, hey, we'll blame the patriarch's death on you, having some run-in with the rival family or this or that, and we'll have you leave, okay? Because the families had a battle over the death of the figurehead, and many others had lost their lives, and the law got involved. And so Tai Long's character took the blame for the mix-up between the societies. So he left town, and the man who turned out to be the one who caused, the murder of the leader of the family was none other than David Chang. Okay? Now, the funny part about that was David Chang's character, he was known in the film as the Rover. Okay? And the Rover was a paid, hired hand, hired assassin. As he went through, his reputation was he could be paid for, he could be had for a price to take people out and things like that. So the Rover, when he came to town, everybody knew something was going down, but he was also known for this cough that he would have. And they said that whenever he coughed, somebody was going to end up dead. So the leader of Tai Long's family was murdered, and no one had any idea who may have been a part of that or who called for it, but Tai Long had to leave town as a result of these things taking place. In the meantime, one of the family's figureheads, who was very ambitious, he began to call the shots for the family. And he had promised Ty's character that, when you go to the south and you bunker down there, and when the coast is clear in a couple of years, we'll bring you back. I'll send some money down there and take care of you, blah, blah, blah. Well, when Tai Lung went away, the man didn't send the money, like he said. He didn't take care of him. They tried to murder him a few times. Like I said, the ultimate story of family betrayal. This is something that is very known in the martial art film industry. It's like that's almost a requisite as a part of the storytelling, that you got to have some backstabbing and double crossing. Okay, so here was more of the same. Now, as David Chang's character, the Rover, it's no secret here that his character was the hired hand. He was paid to kill Tai Lung's family leader, patriarch. And when he discovered that he had been had, he wanted to do something about it. In the meantime, the families grew stronger under the tutelage and representation of this young figurehead who was very ambitious. And he looked to cut ties with anyone in the family that had loyalties to Tai Lung's character, the original family leader, the brother. He was looking to set all of them up and get rid of them so he could be the man sitting on the throne, so to speak, and running deals under the table with their rivals. I tell you, man, the Hong Kong films such as this are quite, sincerely based on real life circumstances, because this is what people do, man. It's like snakes, right? All around you. But as we watch the film and Tai Lung decides to come back home, okay, he's confronting this guy that's the new leader of the family. He's like, "Oh man, I'm glad you're back. We are you okay or whatever?" He was like, "Look, man, I've been down there all that time, couple years. You ain't send me no money. You ain't look out for me. People trying to kill me. What's going on?" He's like, "Oh man, we've been dealing with so many issues here, and your big brother, we had to kick him out. He was stealing money and this and that, and he became a drunk. So we had to kick him out the family." Just all lies, just stuff that's going on. They even took my man Tai Lung's girlfriend, who he called Butterfly, okay, and he had a tattoo of a butterfly imposed on his chest, representing his love for his lady, and they were really getting along good. But while he was gone, man, they sold the lady to a whorehouse and everything, man. It's like, I'm telling you, bro. It was dirty, man. Outright dirty, underhanded stuff. And Tai Lung, he was naive because he was very young. But he also followed what the patriarchs had to say, so he was trying to do his best, But it was just one of those things that, when you see this stuff happening. So I have here a moment where I'm going to take out and show you a clip from the trailer of this film, The Duel, also known as Duel of the Iron Fist. Okay? So check this out. Yeah, you see, that film is total chaotic mayhem, and the funny thing about it is that the fight scenes are, you just see it's the action, but what leads to the action, there is a story here. And that was one great thing about the Shaw Brothers Studios, is they wrote good scripts for their films, and their actors were really up to par. They were always a class and a step up above the other film studios. And they did this. They did this on a regular basis, with everything that they put out. I want to say shout out to Underground Asylum, who's out there in the chat participating. I'm not ignoring your post, brother. I appreciate you out there. And you're right, this was a classic. And he said karate. You could tell it was the U.S. version. Yeah, the trailer. That was the U.S. trailer. which I intentionally used the U.S. trailer because for anyone that saw this film, and for anyone who saw the films in the theaters and saw the trailers, that would be what you would be familiar with, that particular trailer there. But there's a new trailer that's out where the film was remastered and everything for DVD and later Blu-ray. And it's a new trailer, totally nice. That film has been cleaned up a lot. I have it on Blu-ray now, and it's like, it looks like a brand new movie, like it just came out this year or something. That's how much it's been cleaned up, and it looks really awesome. So any of you who have a chance that you like this genre, they're remastering a lot of these films, and they look absolutely great on Blu-ray and DVD now. So yeah, but again, this film, one of the ultimate stories in betrayal and backstabbing, stuff like that. It's like, man, the main plot really picks up when Tai Lung returns to his family, and he's able to see what they did, as far as getting rid of everybody who was loyal to the original leader of the family. They got rid of those guys, if not murdered them or had them jailed or whatever. So the guy was really a piece of crap, the guy who took over the family while he was away those couple of years. And then when he found out that they put his girl in a whorehouse, he thought that she was like in there because she had nothing else to do and she just went and joined it. But no, they took her there. They raped her and broke her in, so to speak, and left her there. And so when he returned, he had to go and rescue her from those conditions. But you could see where the underlying vengeance plot line began to set up. So, after rescuing his girl from the hands of these villainous guys at the brothel, she was able to fill him in on everything that was going on in his absence. And that's when he was like, holy crap, I got to get these guys. So he had to devise a plan how he could go after them. And then he ran across one of his young brothers from the family who had just left. And they thought him dead, but he was hiding out, hoping that he could run into Tai Lung's character. And he did. So he was able to fill him in on the rest of the story of what was happening. And he found out that it was all a setup. The patriarch was murdered, and they brought the rover in to do it. And so his idea was to exact revenge against the rover. When the rover appeared, and the rover said, hey, listen, yes, I did do that, but hear me out. The rover had to, break it down to him how and why he was hired and who he was hired by. It wasn't by the other family. He said it was from within your family. So he was like, you have to look and point your fingers in a certain direction. And that's exactly what happened. So as the film begins its third act, Tai Lung is trying to figure a way to go after this villain that had infiltrated his family, turned everything upside down, and made everyone, turn up against one another and everything. So that was one of those things that, again, when you watch the film, you could be like, man, these guys are ruthless. The stuff that they're doing to each other, and everything, and how it's playing out. So, but those two guys, Tai Lung and David Chang, their characters are very important here, because as the story went on, you could see Tai Lung's character turning more dark because of the revenge he's going to have to take, and David Chang's character turning around for the better because although he was hired, a hired assassin, the Rover, the name that he went under, it turns out that, he has an even higher call for this situation between these families and everything. So, it plays out to the end. I won't reveal all the plot elements because I hope you'd like to go and check or revisit the film for yourself. But Duel of the Iron Fist is an excellent action film, and these men were in their early 20s when they were playing in this. And Shaw Brothers hired them, like I said, to replace Jimmy Wong Yu, and instead of making one guy or the other the new face of the studio, they began to make the young actors who performed well the face of the studio. And they ended up having a few of them. It was these two guys plus Chen Kwai Tai. They had Lo Lei and Danny Yi, and a few others, Wang Chung. All of them became noteworthy stars in the studio, and they all had starring vehicles. David Chang and Tai Lung were known for their films like Dead End and The Generation Gap, where they played, young hipsters in the new generation trying to find their way in life. Coming of age stories, which also had action in them. So they were the guys who were going to lead the studio going forward in the future. Because Shaw Brothers typically signed their actors to 7-year contracts. That meant that they were bound to the studio for 7 years. They didn't have any say-so in the scripts or anything, but they would be given bonuses when films did exceptional, and they lived in dormitories on set, on site of the Shaw Studios. Underground Asylum mentions Fuxing. Yes, but Fuxing came later. Fuxing came after 1974. So I want you to know that that's when he came into his fame within the studio. Prior to that, he was playing bit roles and backdrops. But yes, Fuxing later became a part of that as well. Another part of this film that I thought I would bring out for you guys is another clip, because it's one of those things that I'm trying to do now to give you a great feel for what was happening, behind the scenes and everything with the studios. These guys, they did, they would film movies like 2 or 3 at a time. They would get released at different intervals, but sometimes the actors, they worked on several projects at a time. The bigger the star you were, the less they would do, because they would only want to feature you maybe once or twice a year if you were a big star. But if you were a moderate star or something, you could find yourself working on as many as 6 productions in a year, maybe more. It depends on who your director is and who the lead guy. But Chang Che, the director of this film, loved these two men, and he sought to put them out in ways that always kept the pulse of their audiences thriving, because these men played characters that fit who they were, even though if they weren't like those characters in real life, but they were able to portray them. So Chang Che was very much a guy who paid attention to that aspect of things. But right now, I'll give you a little taste of what went down in the third act of this film. Yeah, see, that was Tai Long's older brother. He was adopted into their family, and he came back to take revenge for them. But the older brother wanted to take part in that too, because that old lecherous dude who had invaded their family and caused all this turmoil and uprising or upheaval, he had to get it. He had to get that revenge for himself, and he did. But this movie is pretty darn good, and that's not the end of it. That's just, this is part of the third act. But David David Chang and Tai Long is up there. So yeah, but that's what it is, man. So oh man,